Welcome to the first demo on Excel. Uh, Throughout our class, I will demonstrate Excel version 14 for Mac. The version for the PC is very similar. The structure is almost the same, only that the icons look a little bit more colorful on the PC. So as we start, we have a layout that is very similar to the other programs in the Office suite. On the top, we have a bar with the menu titles. Then below that we have a main bar with icons. Then we have another menu for the ribbon. And each of these tabs, if you click on them, they will reveal or hide the icons that pertain to that particular area of the ribbon. So we start with Home, Layout, Tables, Charts, Smart Art, Formulas, Data, and Review. And by default, the Excel starts with the Home tab on. Below it, we have the Formula bar with this area right here that shows the name of the cell that we put the cursor in. So right now, I'm at cell B2. And then it shows the validation buttons and also the function area of that bar. Here you can insert different functions, as we will see later in other demos. The main part, of course, consists of the cells, the tabular space, which has letters as columns and numbers as rows. Usually each row represents data for one case, one particular instance, and then each column A, B, C, D, E, and so on represents typically a variable. And at the bottom we have, very importantly, the status bar. The status bar shows a number of very important components, especially the worksheets. So to recap, the document itself, the main document, is called a workbook, but the workbook is organized in worksheets or sheets, and they are located here. By default, when you start an Excel workbook, it opens up one single worksheet and is named sheet number 1. You can add multiple sheets if data will be added later. And the beautiful thing is that you can perform calculations across these sheets, and then that's nice because you don't have to have all of the data in a single sheet, so that it's easier to switch from one sheet to another and eventually perform such calculations. So by default, we start with one sheet, sheet number 1. Of course, you can rename it by double clicking on it. We can call it number 1, for example. And for simplicity, if you right click on it, you will open up an entire menu where you can insert, delete, rename, move, or copy. And you don't see it necessarily here in this video, but you can change the tab color. Again, for easy referencing, I'm going to change mine to yellow. So now, as you can see, sheet number 1 is basically yellow, and then we can go ahead and insert 1, 2, another another bunch of sheets here. Again, they will be populated with data at some point eventually, and we can perform calculations between these sheets. We can see the current sheet by clicking on the sheet that we want to activate, and that will be the active sheet on the screen. But again, we can have calculations between these sheets even if they don't necessarily show in the current view. In the next few minutes, I'm going to go over the main components of the ribbon. These are by default designed to add simplicity to the utilization of Excel. So of course the home tab will have a lot of the functions that are necessary for normal day-to-day regular, not sophisticated use. We start with formatting for the fonts. And again, the engine is very similar to what you see in the other components of the Microsoft Office suite. It starts by default with Calibri, font size number 12. You have the bold, italic, and underlining options. You have options for borders to whatever selected area we have. So for example, if I want to select these areas, I could add borders to them. We can also add borders by right-clicking on it and then going to formatting cells, but that's again the subject of another lesson. We also have the clear button. We also have the fill button, and we have the paste button. And paste is very interesting because it allows us to paste in a number of ways depending on what exactly we want to paste as data into a worksheet. Then we have the alignment commands, which are very important in order to give our Excel workbooks a very professional appearance. We also have the number formatting, and this is very important. By default, we start with a general number format, but we can change it to various accounting types of formats, percentages. We can increase the number of decimal places or decrease it. We can add different currencies. By default, it starts with US dollars, but we can add English pounds or euros or Chinese currencies and so on. We also have the button of conditional formatting, which is very interesting. It allows us to basically format the appearance of the quantities in an Excel workbook by providing it by giving it different attributes so we can see them easily. We also have other formatting commands, normal, and so on. And then we have the cell management engine by inserting different cells or by deleting different cells and formatting different cells. Also, for the sake of professional looking, we have a number of themes that we can add. It's each theme, just like in the other components of the Microsoft Office, especially in PowerPoint, is assigned a certain color scheme. And they, of course, can be customized. It's just a matter of preference for each individual user how they prefer to customize this. So that's basically the home menu. Again, it includes the most common functions, very easy to use, and so on. The next one is the layout, which basically deals with how the pages are going to be set up if we were to print a worksheet. So the orientation, portrait versus landscape, the size of the paper. Typically, for most part, we use the letter size, the US letter size, 8.5 by 11. We have the margins. We can set page margins, and then we can set header and footer, which is very interesting because using this will allow us to create headers or footers or add page numbers or even customize messages to our sheets, which will be very useful when we print out. We also have the view engine. We can view the grid lines. By default, they are showed on. So if I click on this button, they'll be taken out. I don't recommend this because it's easier if we leave the grid lines on to see the quantities and to see the borders of each cell. We also have the headlines, which we can add or remove, and the breaks. The breaks basically show us the areas of the screens that will be printed on a single page, and it's very easy to, especially to manipulate quantities and to format the cells when somebody needs to make a printout. We have the preview, repeat titles, a simple command, and then some other commands that pertain to the printing options that Excel gives us. The third tab is the Tables tab, and it offers opportunities for us to format tables according to the specific rules that we want to have. We have preset themes where we can create our own themes. We have also options to manage certain cells by inserting or deleting certain cells or summarizing data using pivot tables and so on. A very important tab is the Charts tab, which deals with all sorts of options that we have for data visualization, starting with column types of charts, then line type of charts, very popular pie charts, and the bars, which is basically the opposite of the columns, area charts, scatter points for statistical analysis, and all sorts of other less conventional types of charts that can be used to illustrate different kinds of data. We also have the sparklines commands which are very useful to highlight trends in the data, but we'll get to that in a few lessons. We also have an engine that is similar to other components of the Microsoft Office platform, the SmartArt. I rarely use this, and I have rarely seen it used in Excel, but it definitely carries on from other components of the suite, and so we can definitely use programs. Next, we have the Formula tab, which is absolutely very important. It has a number of very important functions that we'll use later in the semester as we learn more on how to work with actual data. The insert function to the current cell. We have the auto sum, which allows us to sum or average or count numbers or find a maximum value or a minimum value in an array of data. We have the formula builder command. We have the reference for different formulas or to show formulas and so on. So there are a lot of commands to design and to show functions that are very, very important for us in tabular calculations. We also have the audit formulas. Sometimes we'll get into really complicated formulas and we want to understand exactly the dynamics of those formulas. So we can hit this command to show precedence and this command to show dependence. Eventually we can remove the arrows that show precedence or dependence, and eventually we have another button to check for errors. The next tab is basically the data tab, and it allows us to extract more meaning from the data by summarizing it properly. If, for example, we have data organized by rows and columns, we can sort the data according to their alphabetical order, ascending or descending. Or if we have color formatting, we can use that, or we can create our own custom sort. We'll discuss that in a different demo. One of the most important components of data analysis and visualization is basically the filtering, right? We can create filters, we can create pivot tables, which is a lesson in itself to basically show summaries of the data without necessarily computing a lot. The Excel engine will compute it for us, and we can go into what-if analyses. We also have a number of commands that allow us to use, basically they provide shortcuts to external data sources. Text databases, HTML, file makers, and so on. And a number of tools that, again, validate data, remove duplicates, validate data, consolidation, and so on. We also have ways to group cells together, and the reverse of that is to ungroup the cells together, cells that were previously grouped. And finally, we have a similar tab that is again present in a lot of the Microsoft Office suites. I was thinking about Microsoft Word because it's likely that someone will use this feature more in Word than in other types of components of the suite. But this tab basically deals with commenting. You can create a new comment, you can add to that comment. The comments can be visualized by author and things like that. So that allowed for better collaboration between different kinds of users if more users collaborate on a certain Excel spreadsheet. We also have a number of features that allow us to protect our work, to protect using passwords, to protect, for example, a sheet or a workbook, to use a password or to allow permissions. And also we have a very interesting feature that was added recently to Excel to share the workbook, protect it, and so on. We also have the tracking changes, which is very important again when collaborative work is expected from working in Excel. So those are basically the main tabs that pertain to the ribbon in Excel for Mac as they are presented to the users as default. Of course, we can find a lot of the commands by using the menus, and we'll dedicate another lesson to that as we go specifically into the menus. I also want to emphasize very briefly the top part of the toolbar section. We have here the main buttons that we have in all the Microsoft Office suites, starting from left to right with a new workbook. This is the equivalent, for example, of the new document in Word or new presentation in PowerPoint. Then next one is new from template. Sometimes companies will create a template. You can create your own templates, for example, for a specific class, or maybe you have certain preferences that will be incorporated in the template. Then you can create a new template for that. Or you can just open an existing workbook from a file. Obviously, one of the most important buttons or commands is the save the workbook. You can save in, of course, that's a simple duplication of the save commands from the file menu. You have save, save as a web page, or save the layout of the worksheet, and so on. And then you have a number of common commands that are useful, again, as they are similar to other commands in the Microsoft Office suite. The print command, please remember that if you click on the print command, the print function will be activated. The file will go directly to the printer with the settings that are default or were preset before. We have the cut, copy, and paste commands. We have the paint for formatting. And we have really two important commands here, undo and redo. I don't have the redo activated because I haven't done anything to the sheet. And we have some common data manipulation or calculation formula there. For example, we have the sum, we have the sort, we have the filter, and we have the function. And finally, we have the zoom here. The default for my view here is 100%, but for me, for my eyes, it's a little small, so I can actually change the resolution to 125% or 150% depending on how I prefer the things to be. So right now it changed to 150%. And finally, we have the display help for this particular program. It will take you to the web where you can find more topics. You also have the search in the sheet. For example, you search for a particular item or for a particular sequence of letters or numbers. You can definitely use this. It's very useful. You can search in the entire sheet, or you can search in the whole workbook. You can go find something using an advanced search, or you can do a search and a replace. That is very useful sometimes when you want to use Excel for data coding and things like that. That's basically what I had to show you in the very first lesson. This is just a basic demonstration of the layout of Excel, and please stay tuned for the other demos on how to actually use different commands in Excel to perform tabular calculations. Thank you very much.